After abstaining from any pleasing exercises for 30 years, a lonely loser dies from a heart attack, proving that staying a virgin for 30 years doesn't make you a wizard. When he gets reincarnated to another world, where he's born as Shion, the son of an aristocrat, Shion, with the help of his hyperactive new older sister, discovers the possibility of magic, hoping to fulfill his lifelong dream. After their long vacation, Marie welcomed home her parents, Gawain and Emma, who had left her home alone to take a break from the stress of parenthood. Surprisingly, they came home with a gift, which seemed to be the opposite of their intention, as Marie now had a new sibling. Her mother introduced her to her baby brother, Shion, who she was excited to see. After Marie gave him a kiss on his cheek to get his attention, she introduced herself to her new sibling, who she would eventually have to live home alone with. 3 years later, Shion had grown up enough to play around with his sister as they raced around in their house. After bragging to her younger brother that she'd won, Marie rushed over to the gate to welcome their dad, leaving Shion confused about how energetic his sister was. They greeted their dad and discussed many things with him, but after hearing her father talk about how dependable Shion was, Marie thought about how mature Shion was at his age, helping his mother with chores and already being potty trained. However, when she caught him daydreaming, she confirmed to herself he was still just a child like her. One night at dinner, Shion got his family's attention and began to ask his father strange questions. He asked about monsters and fairies, which his father told him existed. But when he mentioned magic, he confused the rest of his family. His father explained that the word magic was unfamiliar to him, and after hearing Shion talk about the impossible, Marie thought her brother was going loony from sickness. After that dinner, Shion never mentioned magic again to the rest of the family. Another 3 years later, Marie was out in the front yard practicing her swordsmanship while Shion read a book. When Marie sat down to rest beside her brother, Shion asked her why she trained so much. She explained that because she wasn't book smart like him, she wanted to make herself powerful enough to protect him from danger, which made Shion confused. Later that night, she continued to train at a lakeside where she met her friend Rose. She attempted to bait Rose into sparring with her, but the other girl refused, claiming she was too tired from doing chores. They then talked about Shion, who rarely came out to play because he was always busy studying. When Marie thought deeply about it, she realized her brother wasn't just an antisocial bookworm, but a kid obsessed with the strange word magic. While she stood on a large boulder talking about her brother, strange balls of light began flying out of the lake, surprising Marie and Rose. The next day, Marie forced Shion out of the house, promising him she had something to show. Shion warned her that their parents told them not to go outside the property, but Marie was insistent as she followed him. After getting to the lake, they sat and waited till dawn, discussing whether or not their mom would get angry. And finally, the light show began. Shion was instantly surprised by the view and immediately stood up to admire the scenes. He then asked Marie if she had shown their parents, and Marie assured him she did. However, they only followed her to the lake, but somehow couldn't see the light balls. When Shion asked more questions, Marie explained that it wasn't only adults who couldn't see them, but some kids as well, making it a special sight. After Marie compared the light show to the magic Shion talked about, he broke into tears, amazed that his sister remembered such a special detail for him. He thanked his sister for caring so much and showing him the special sight. Then they decided to go back home. The next day, they rushed through breakfast to the amazement of their parents and headed over to the lake with some buckets. After walking for a bit, Shion became exhausted, causing Marie to call him a lazy nerd. He decided to take his time to explain why they needed the buckets to Marie, but she couldn't understand him because she was also a muscle for brains. After resting, they got to the lake, where Shion gave Marie instructions on what to do. They filled up 3 buckets with water, then put rocks in one and leaves in another. They then proceeded to try fishing in the lake, hoping they could make a catch and put it in the 3rd bucket. While they waited for a fish to take the bait, they talked about how wonderful it would be if magic existed. Eventually, a fish took the bait. Making the siblings happy, they finally caught one. While Marie explained to Shion that it was an Eton trout fish, a species popular in their world, her friend Rose appeared. She asked what Marie was doing at the lake, which the latter didn't answer, so instead, she changed her question and asked if the boy behind Marie was the Shion they constantly talked about. After Marie confirmed it, they exchanged pleasantries, and Shion introduced himself. When Rose asked again what Marie was doing at the lake, She was told they were fishing, and Cheyenne knew all about the light orbs. After hearing Marie talk about it, Cheyenne pressured Rose, asking her multiple questions while forcing himself into her personal space, causing Rose to push him back and Marie to get jealous. When the sun set once again, the light orbs began flying out from the lake, but not the buckets, frustrating Cheyenne. After seeing Rose's failure to catch another fish, he decided to take matters into his own hands and took off his clothes to take a dip, forcing Marie to follow suit. When they entered the water, he could only feel the warmth of the light and see nothing else as the lake was too murky. Although he couldn't catch or see anything, Cheyenne was able to confirm that the light was coming from moving creatures. Just then, Rose caught a female Eton trout, which was rarer than the male, and when Cheyenne put it beside the male, the light orbs instantly began flying out. It immediately occurred to Cheyenne that it was the courting which caused the magic. After hearing Cheyenne's analysis, Marie asked why the same didn't happen with them, causing Cheyenne to blush. When Cheyenne explained that it was impossible because that would be wrong, Marie convinced him it didn't matter because they loved each other. The next day, Marie came into the room, displeased that their mother had scolded her. When Cheyenne asked why, she explained that it was because their mom thought she was crazy for talking about marriage. She then began tearing up, asking Cheyenne if she was insane. Knowing fully that she was, Cheyenne decided to ignore the question and instead promised her that he'd decide not to marry so they could be together forever, and hugged her. In a surprising turn of events, he began glowing, amazing Marie, and confirming his theory that their confessions could create magic. At that moment, Cheyenne realized he had not been reincarnated as a vending machine or an apple, but as the magic maker who would change his new world. In a modern room, a creepy guy obsessively watched his phone clock tick, waiting for the next day to come. When the clock struck 12, he happily jumped up in celebration, happy that it was his 30th birthday. However, unlike normal adults, his source of joy was that he could finally verify the theory that not involving yourself with women until you're 30 will make you a wizard. After trying out magic words and reading his book of cringe spells, he was stopped by a neighbor who slammed the wall, forcing him to stop being dumb and apologize. When he tried checking another page of his book, he immediately got a cardiac arrest from all the cringe, causing him to pass on. While on his way to reincarnation, he watched his old life on a big screen, seeing how much of a lonely loser he was, hoping the legends were true. After getting reincarnated, he realized his new world was barely different from his old one, as they both lacked magic. But after 6 years of living, he finally discovered a way to make it happen. Another 3 years later, Cheyenne couldn't get over what had happened to him. He lay on his bed and attempted to chant a fire-casting spell, but failed miserably. Just then, his sister came in, telling him it was snack time. He made a complaint, telling her to knock before entering as he needed his privacy, but Marie didn't take it well, telling him there was nothing to be embarrassed about. When he realized she was upset, Cheyenne asked Marie to sit beside him, causing her to blush and shyly obey his request. After she sat, he immediately reminded her of his love for her, causing her to blush even more and making him glow. After seeing his reaction, Cheyenne continued to confirm his theories, amazed at the glowing. However, Marie looked at him angrier than before, knowing that he had simply used her. She then called him a liar who used her emotions to play, but after he reaffirmed to her that the emotions were true, she gullibly forgave him immediately, making Cheyenne think she was naive. After resolving the issue, Cheyenne wondered why he could only use magic after confessing to Marie. He decided to try other emotions and dug into his memory, thinking about the happy moments he had in his previous life. After groaning weirdly for a bit, he began glowing, instantly gaining understanding of what he believed to be magic. He explained to Marie that controlling magic was similar to eels, who manipulated electricity from the atmosphere, as he simply manifested magical energy using strong emotions. Over the next few days, he began to have a better understanding of controlling his magic and the limitations and hacks that came with his new special ability. On occasions when he was training his magic, his parents would see him as a psycho, given they couldn't see magical energy. After completely analyzing magical energy, Cheyenne was still bothered that he couldn't release magical light orbs like the fish. He began to wonder how inferior he was to them, but eventually an idea popped up in his head, telling him to concentrate the energy in one hand. After a few tries, he finally got it, causing him to laugh weirdly. However, when he tried to hit a wall with the energy, it simply cracked his weak hand. He had learned more about magical energy and aimed to continue his research, but fate would have a different path for him. The next day, his father requested he and Rose join Marie's swordsmanship lessons, disappointing Theon, who planned on wasting his day on magic. When he attempted to jilt from lessons and make silly excuses, his father told him it was necessary to protect themselves from monsters when the time came. Over the next few minutes, Theon proved to be completely combat useless, while Rose showed potential. They then ended their training session with a battle between Marie and her father, which Marie lost. When Marie sulked up to her father, he comforted her, telling her she wasn't bad but simply needed more training to become a master like him. Some days later, Theon had progressed further with his magical energy training and could now hold his state longer. However, the magical moves he dreamed of were still beyond reach. After his father came into his room, offering him a trip to Istria, a town nearby, Theon decided to take a break and accept the offer, hoping to see what a town in his new world looked like. They got to their location via wooden carriage, which hurt the behinds of the shut-in kids. Although Theon wanted to walk around the city alone, hoping to have an adventure and discover more information about magic, he decided to simply look around with his family, listening to the advice of his parents who warned against it. They walked around the city shopping for groceries and important things they needed before finally getting to their last shop, a blacksmith's. Their dad, Gawain, joked around with the blacksmith, who introduced himself as Grass to the kids. He helped their dad prepare a surprise gift for Marie, who had become a better swordsman. After receiving her new blade, Marie was overwhelmed with joy, thanking her parents for the special gesture. While they went home, Marie apologized to Theon, who didn't get anything. However, he told her there was nothing to worry about, as he was happy for her. After passing by a weird shop with some strange customer goods, Theon called out to his parents and inquired about it. However, they told him not to bother about the store, as it was something he didn't need to know. Theon, however, was now more intrigued by the store, wondering why it had the name Fairy Shop, and what was glowing from the cage the weird customer held. In the woods around Eton, where Theon and his family lived, a man selling firewood was caught under the rain on his way home. Suddenly, a strange man in ragged clothes appeared out of nowhere and cried for help, screaming that people had been attacked. When the wood merchant asked what had attacked them, the victim warned that they had come across goblins, showing the creepy image of 1 meter behind him. Meanwhile, in their home, Theon and Marie were testing how long he could control the magic energy ball on his arm. Theon then began to get lost in thought, wondering about the fairy cellar he saw. Just then, they heard a loud noise from outside. When they went downstairs to check, they saw their parents talking with strange men in cloaks. After Theon asked what was going on, Gawain explained that goblins had been found in the surrounding area. However, unlike the others, Theon was amazed by the information. He believed it was his chance to study the goblins closely, but he was immediately put off by the atmosphere, which made it seem like goblins were an insane threat. His father proceeded to give instructions, asking Emma and some of the men to lead the women, children, and elderly into his home to protect them from the goblins. Just before Gawain left, Theon proposed an idea to him, telling him the people in the house could stay on the upper floors due to the dumb and unathletic nature of the goblins. After his father approved it, Theon and the remaining villagers hid safely on the top floor of the house. Later that night, they would face a threat as a goblin got into the area and jumped over the fence, giving it access to the house. When the family heard the goblin's multiple attacks on the house door, they began to panic, but Theon calmed them down, assuring them they were safe. Unfortunately for him, he spoke too soon, as the goblin broke through a window and snuck into the house. It began to climb up the stairs, searching for prey. Although it passed the room with the family, unaware of their presence the first time, lightning struck along with a large boom of thunder, causing one of the other refugees to scream, which caught the goblin's attention. It immediately charged at their door, and after a series of hits, broke through. Theon immediately realized his idea of studying something so hideous was incredibly stupid, as the goblins stood on their failed barrier, laughing at the helpless people. Emma tried to protect the kids, telling them to get behind her. However, it didn't matter, as the goblin knew it could get them all. After realizing the life of her family was at stake, Marie attempted to defend them using her new blade, but she was immediately low-diffed as the goblin smacked the sword away. When Marie broke down in panic, the goblin attempted to strike the defenseless girl, but instead hit Emma, who jumped in to protect her daughter. Theon immediately understood that if he continued to do nothing, his family would die. He steeled his will and jumped on the arm of the goblin, hoping it would have an effect. He then saw the magical energy he researched emanating from the goblin, giving him an idea. He charged his own energy and infused it into the arm of the goblin, causing it to burn. When the goblin felt how much it was damaged, it threw Theon onto the wall and began to roll in pain. However, it wasn't over, as Theon struck again, this time torching the head of the goblin till it was eliminated. Although Theon had miraculously defeated the goblin with his plot armor, the others seemed to look at him like a monster due to his weird power, which they couldn't see. Rose and Marie were the only exceptions, as they could perceive magical energy. After recovering from her brother's surprising win, Marie remembered their mother, Emma, who had been injured. After realizing the severity of the wound, Theon took control, begging the other villagers who had come out from hiding to help him tend to his mom. They set her up on a bed, where Theon requested help from one who knew how to sew, and others who would bring liquor and move the dead goblin. He requested Leah, the seamstress, to sew up the wounds of his mother, but she was reluctant, not wanting to harm Emma. However, after some words of motivation from Theon, she eventually gave in and helped Theon save Emma. A few hours later, the men returned, astounded that they had found another goblin dead in the house. They explained that they had defeated the other goblins and rushed home after realizing there was one more. After the villagers left for their homes, Emma was checked by a doctor who praised the individuals who saved her life for a neat job. Later that night, Gawain had a discussion with Theon, asking him how he understood first aid at his age. Knowing that his reincarnation story would only make him sound more insane, Theon simply lied that it only came to him and he didn't know why. When Gawain changed the subject to how Theon defeated the goblin, his son's reluctance to answer gave him a hint that it was the magic he spoke of. When Marie tried to defend him, she slipped and informed Gawain that Theon researched magic. After an argument on whether or not it was necessary, Gawain gave in to his son's endeavor and promised to help his son study magic. Now, with the full support of his family, Theon continued researching magic, fulfilling his dream as the magic maker. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you next time.